Let me introduce y'all to my tree right now. My elder right here. This my elder right here. Since the elder's not eldering, this the elder, my 2D consciousness elder. Like when Pocahontas had Grandma Willow this is my Grandma Willow right here. So I be getting the information fresh off the pot from 2D consciousness. I gotta share with y'all what my tree told me. I know, but not this ain't for everybody. It might look away for some people, but hey, go get you some elders in 2D consciousness because the earth is speaking. So with that said, there's another video I'm gonna share about between the 20th and the 21st what was happening, and it was another 0 point on the 20th, a 0 point of neutrality into new beginnings by the date code numbers, which is a whole nother background calendar of what's happening in true timekeeping according to the infinite nine. Now there is a great discernment. This was the message of that day, the great discernment, and a day that marks the exact opposition and alignment in the cosmic basket. But I'm gonna go into that. I'll do probably a more extended video, maybe on YouTube if it can't fit here. So just know that there was a great discernment that was happening, that was being highlighted. It was whispering to me, use your discernment on so many ways that also has to do with the CERN and how we can discern from the CERN. Whole nother video for that. Let's talk about what the tree told me about the falling of 3D consciousness. The falling. I'm going to quote it because it's not really a falling the way people think we just fell into 3D, as if 3D was not an evolution in and of itself. And the tree was here to remind me, don't get it twisted, don't get misconstrued. So in the great discernment, I've discerned through the wisdom of the wind in the breeze between the trees, and I'm giving you just as I got it, that the 2D consciousness has spoken in correction of thoughts about the awareness of the provisions of what we are to eat on this planet regarding fruit. So it clarified that. It was said, this was a message that as I was listening to, the tree was like, Not that it was totally wrong, but there was something in it that can be misconstrued by humanity. It was said that when the opposition implants, which is whatever you call opposition, demons, devils, I call it the demonic database, whatever you call it. We gonna call it the opposition implants. But it was said that when the opposition implants changed our diet from fruits, they lowered us into the third dimension. Like that's what dropped us into a third dimension. The 2D consciousness reminded me, Grandma Tree right here reminded me that it is not to be misconstrued with the understanding that we fell into 3D as if it is a default to exist in 3D. That's another thing that a lot of people misconstrue, like it's something bad to be in 3D. Give me a second. I'm gonna break it down to you of what the so-called bad is perceived as, right? So as if it's a default, which it's not, that rather it is the evolution through planetary ascension that has evolved through 2D earth material consciousness to 3D animated species consciousness. It is an onward, upward evolution from the beginning of time, from the Big Bang, whatever you want to call it, from the speck, from the nut in the sky, from the newt in the sky, which is what I call the nut, the universal nut that birthed us, the newt. So from the beginning and all of that, the earth has been on an ascension from 1D consciousness to 2D to 3 and on and on. It's just like when a baby is in the womb and it goes from that one, the zygote, and then it splits. The atoms split and then it into 1, 2, it goes from the 1 into the 2 and then it keeps multiplying. That is simply what is happening on the ascension, planetary ascension. So it's not that we fell into 3D, it is that we evolved from 2D's consciousness into 3D. And 2D is the material, this plant life, the elements, the stones, the crystals, all of that. That's 2D consciousness. And 3D is when the earth evolved to a point That means we're birthed from all of this 2D consciousness that continue to multiply and multiply and multiply and expand its consciousness within Earth. This is the intelligence and the consciousness of Earth in and of itself that began to then birth humanity, 3D consciousness. So that means we evolved. And the evolution keeps going, even though we are witnessing negative and we're witnessing downfalls, because the earth has a cyclical a cycle to its ascension, to its ascent and descent. Check the yuga cycle for that. There are 12,000 years of descent and there are 12,000 years of ascension, which we are on right now. Anywho, I digress. Furthermore, what it's showing us is that humanity was supposed to be evolved. It is supposed to be evolved into. We were supposed to come into humanity and then evolve some more. The evolution continues. However, infiltration entities, which are those same opposition implants, infiltration entities exploited humanity's vulnerability in the ascension experience by implanting the false matrix layer over the divine matrix that corrupts the divine will and plan and creates, this is the creation story, creates an altered reality as a ripple in time space that has existed as the fallen one. So that would be the falling. It's not that we fell into 3D, we actually evolved into 3D, but through this infiltration, there was created an alternate reality while we are in 3D, where the fallen ones existed as the fallen ones in the 3D shadows. So what was fallen into was the alternate reality of the shadows of 3D, which a lot of woken ones, a lot of those who are waking and rising, the rising temples that are activating the light grid, that are doing everything to help the planetary ascension, we're finding that true timeline again. So that was those that were falling into the shadows. Now there's a little bit more. The correction, thank you for my tree. The correction is that the falling into 3D is really the altered state of reality by those who have fallen off the true timeline into the ideal time reality as the shadows of the third dimension. So it's that they have fallen off the true timeline, which is why a lot of those who are waking right now, we are finding the true timeline. We are alchemizing and we are shifting timelines, sifting and shifting through the timelines, where we are finding the true time reality timeline. The fallen ones are the ones who fell into the ideal time reality, and that ideal timeline presented an altered timeline into the shadows of 3D, running simultaneously along with the other timelines. And so some are in the middle in the real timeline reality, which pivot back and forth between ideal time and true time. But those who are the rising temples and who become the risen ones are the ones who find the true timeline. So 3D is not the fallen, the illusion is. Let's get that in this conclusion. It is not the 3D, but it is the illusion. And so what we are canceling out, what is collapsing, is that ideal timeline, that false reality as the ideal, that false matrix that holds the vibration of the ideal timeline reality. That is what is falling, that is what is collapsing, so that we can exist back on our true timeline, which is now in the ascension of the fifth dimension. Of course, the planet is now in the fifth dimension, which is an expansion of 3D. We don't get rid of 3D. Just as 3D still included 2D, we still include 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, which is time, and now 5D. It's all inclusive in the dimensions of our mind. So there is no getting away. There is no falling. The falling is the illusion. The moment you release the illusion, you get to the true conclusion of the risen ones in the fifth dimension, expansion in time. Say thank you to the tree. Peace, love, and light.